Cut, shoot, kill. This is the title of a 2017 horror movie written and directed by Michael Walker. Now, with a title like that, you'll be forgiven for thinking it's actually an action film. It isn't. It is a slasher film, and it's actually a slasher film with a little bit of originality. The slasher movies have been going on for so long now, you kind of feel that they are really, there's not much you can do with them. This one actually managed to pull off somewhat of an original story, but still kind of have those kind of things that you'll enjoy about a slasher film. So let's discuss. The story here basically focuses on this group of filmmakers, and they've been friends together for years and years and years, and they've made a variety of different kind of horror shorts, and they want to make their first feature-length movie. Now, the thing is that this group of filmmakers want absolute realism in their films, and how do they achieve that? Well, they actually really kill the actors that they hire for these kind of horror films to get the sense of fear, to get the kind of the real kind of performance basically from these people, and to have obviously these realistic scenes of people getting killed. So we come to their first feature-length film, and they hire this kind of group of unknown actors, and it focuses on the kind of the female protagonist basically, who is obviously going to be your final girl. And obviously this crew, they wanted to kill these guys off, get it all on film, but this female kind of actress, this kind of lead actress, becomes a little bit suspicious of what's going on and feels like there's something maybe not quite right, and her suspicions are obviously quite grounded, as you can probably imagine. And what happens obviously after that, you'll have to watch the film to find out. So like I say, I kind of quite enjoyed this film. I thought it was kind of a different spin on the kind of the slasher genre. I know there's been films that had a somewhat similar premise, but nonetheless, I still feel it does have some originality to it, and I have to commend it for that. I thought the characters were all quite fun. I actually quite liked one of the supporting characters, who was the male lead, and he's this kind of guy who used to be a child actor and is a bit kind of jaded by the Hollywood kind of machine, and it's actually quite a fun movie. He has a great scene towards the end of the film as well, which is quite a good action scene, I've got to say. So let's talk about any negatives that I have. One of them is going to seem quite pernickety, and it's going to take some explaining, so just bear with me. So this film is thinks it's quite clever in regards to having this meta narrative where you're kind of watching a film within a film, but it makes some mistakes in doing so. So for example, the first victim is this actress who is essentially down in this kind of basement set. But it's set in a real kind of farmhouse, and she's basically waiting for this other actor to come down these stairs and do her death scene, basically. Do a few takes and such, and she's kind of getting a little bit freaked out because she doesn't like being in this kind of dark basement. She's just told to wait down there for the next take, and just a take where the guy's really going to come down and kill her, unbeknownst to her, of course. And while she's down there, she's kind of like looking around, and she sees some things that maybe don't look quite right. There's some what she thinks are initially props that may be real body parts and stuff like that, and gets freaked out, etc., etc. And obviously the guy comes down and eventually gets her. What's wrong with that scene? Well, the problem is that we see the scene being watched later on by the actual crew as they're kind of editing it. But that means there's clearly someone down there filming it, and while this girl's getting all freaked out because she's on her own, it doesn't make sense because there was clearly a cameraman down there, if we are to believe the footage that they are watching is what was shot, if that makes sense. So there's some continuity errors in this movie that I feel are a result of it trying to be a little bit too meta. That probably has got over anyone's head there, but I'm just trying to explain. Some of the kind of the cleverness that it tries to inject into this premise almost backfires and it kind of takes you out the film itself. I've got to say, other negatives that I have, it does meander just a tad, I feel, in places, and just maybe could have been tightened up. And I've got to say, I thought the ending was quite weak and doesn't make sense. When you have this kind of like very smart narrative that it's all through the movie, the ending, I feel, takes a bit of a left turn. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, to be honest. But I've got to say, I really enjoyed the majority of this film. I thought the premise was quite good. I thought the kind of the pacing, certainly the kind of the first kind of like first acts and maybe third acts were quite good. It does lag a little bit in the middle, like I said, but nonetheless, it's quite fun, and I think there are some pretty decent gore effects here. It's not a massively gory film, but nonetheless, I feel it does work, and it's interesting to see like a group of organised slashers that are a kind of a committee, and it's just a little bit different, I feel, from your kind of like your run-of-the-mill slasher films. So I really do have to give it some props for that. It didn't work perfectly for me, but it's definitely a fun movie if you are a slasher fan and kind of a fan of film itself, because you almost feel like you're watching both a horror film and almost a kind of behind-the-scenes situation as well. So it's kind of fun to watch the movie as a story, but also see kind of the making of how a horror film is made, even though it's obviously a fictional setting and all that. So overall, I got to say I enjoyed this film. I'll give it an above average 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? Leave a comment. And I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.